So we are here at the Millersburg Ferry. I'll actually go down a little further, talk about some more stuff. I'm going to talk about a couple stories here as well. They have a beautiful riverfront park here. I'll turn it around, they have the ferry wall, and this is where the ferries are not out yet. We will be coming to these at some point. But purpose of this video is, as some of you know, you've seen on the Facebook page, my mom passed. Today's Sunday, April 28th. She passed on Thursday the 25th at around 11 o'clock at night. And I'm just thankful I got to spend all of my 44 and a half years with her. She was an amazing mother. I'm everything that I am because of her. And she taught us about love. She taught us about kindness. Taught us about giving. She taught us how to be strong, which is why we're able to handle such a loss. Because it's hard. Yesterday I had a moment. We had to go to funeral home to get that set up, and then we had to go over to nursing home. Wanted to check on Lorraine, her friend. We wanted to set up some bird feeders that I'd wanted to put up there for her and the ladies in her room, and just reminisce a little bit, pick up her stuff. And that was the first time, like, you're driving down the road, you think about something, and it hits you. But seeing her empty window with the tape on it yet from where the pictures had been, that was sort of the moment that it broke for me. Because there's just sort of finality to it, and it just sort of hit you. I'm never going to touch her again. You know, we used to poke each other, harass her, and stuff like that, and she'd harass me back. She used to joke about the hairy, oh no, hairy kisses. So, well, I'm going to shave. She's like, that's okay. It really is moments like these, and being here, her hometown of Millersburg, right next to the Susquehanna, which she had so many adventures, but I'm going to tell you some of them here. And it's going to be a lot more meaningful when we have our first YouTube meet and greet event here in Millersburg. Probably it's going to be in July because June is starting to fill up. I am going to be doing a lecture, I guess you can say, or a talk for the Daughters of the American Revolution on June 15th at Hummelstown for the Pennsylvania chapter, talking about the Hanover results, which we've done a video on, Pennsylvania historic marker. And they would like me to be the keynote speaker because I'm the only one that has any information on the internet about it. I didn't know anything about them either until I researched it, and I actually got to talk to Laura too, because I think I got some of my information from her and the awesome research she does for Marker Quest. So it's a really neat opportunity, because originally June 15th I was going to do the walk, historic walks in Myerstown, but when they have the Isaac Meyer Homestead open in June, it's the same day, and it's just an opportunity. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to work with such a prestigious and amazing historical society that does so much to preserve history. Everything they stand for is phenomenal. So the opportunity to have them pick me out and say, hey, we'd like you to speak at this event about the Hanover Resolves, really, really cool. And the 22nd, I will be at the historic Alexander Schaefer Farm at their Cherry Festival for Historic Schaeferstown LLC to be one of the storytellers or something along those lines. So I will be in complete French and Indian War era garb, American Revolutionary era garb, telling stories from that time, I suppose. I'm guessing that's what it's going to be. But because of that, probably it'll be July. They get the ferries out, which I'll show you the ferries down there. They get them into the water sometime in May, usually around Memorial Day weekend, and then they go back and forth here. So we will go on a ride on the ferry at some point, and then we'll all meet here and all the really neat historic society things in the area, we'll wind out doing together. Hang out, maybe eat together, fellowship, and hopefully a bunch of other YouTubers will be willing to come out. But purpose for why we're here is Mom, Marianna Walborn Miller. Extraordinary lady. So one of the stories that has to do with this ferry wall. I guess they had a little dinky boat, and Jim and her would go fishing. And Jim had had some kind of job, and he bought this lure. And it was about $5 back then. Probably would have been early 50s, late 40s, probably early 50s, because I think she was around 12 at that time. She was born in 1940, so it would have been about 52. So their mom, Helen, had always said to him, I don't want you going anywhere near that ferry wall, just because the water's deeper, a little bit faster as it goes. She didn't want them to get their boat caught in the current and get washed over the ferry wall, and then something bad happened to them. But they decided this would be a good place to fish and not listen to Mom. Well, Jim let Mom fish with this lure, and somehow she got it caught in the reeds or something along this wall. Well, Jim was irate. He's like, well, you're going in the water and you're going and getting that lure. So she did. What Jim didn't think about is she was going to be soaking wet when she got home, and they would have to tell the truth. So when the mom was mad, she's like, why is Mary all wet? Well, she went and got a lure. Helen was not happy with Jim at all about that. She really lives. Don't you ever do that again to your sister? Yeah, so it was one of the funny stories. He had some other really good ones where they had built one of these cars, no motor or anything like that, just like one of the, I forget what they're called, but like they'd roll downhill and you'd actually have a person that could drive them. So they had one of the hills here in Millersburg. They started at the top of the hill, and for some reason they felt, let's send Mary down in this. So they'd have kids positioned down where the roads went across to signal, hey, you got to use the brakes because there's a car coming, or they'd signal the car to stop. Well, apparently the brakes didn't work, and there was a car. I want to say her name is Miss Mabel something. These are the things that stink that you can't remember the stories and stuff like that. But Mom made the turn to not hit the vehicle, and she nailed this lady's tree, which was this lady's favorite tree. It took off a huge chunk of bark, and they had to go back and paint black over it to preserve the tree and all that kind of stuff. That was another one of those situations. Is like, what are you guys thinking, sending your sister down in this car? And the last one, which I always thought was hilarious, there was this old lady who was sort of a maiden, never got married, was quite odd. The rumor was that she was a witch, and they used to always try to semi-avoid this lady. Apparently she was a really sweet lady, but she was bizarre, like strange person, and she would always offer chewing gum to the kids because she wanted to be around kids. She was just a loving personality, decent person. So they always had to weigh, do we want to get turned into a newt or a frog, or do we want that chewing gum? Well, as with most kids, they took the chance to get the chewing gum. If they turned into a frog or a newt for a little while, they'd get better. But those were just some of the fun stories with Mom when they were kids, their adventures here in Millersburg. I'm gonna flip this around so you guys can see the beauty of the Susquehanna River here. There you have it, beautiful Susquehanna River. This is the ferry wall. You'll see some of the stuff sitting there, but all along here you can see sort of the difference. They have to put the wall there so the water's deep enough, especially in summer, because there are times even with the wall in the summer you can't run the ferry because the water's just too low. but they need the water to be deep enough so they can turn the ferry around, back it up to the dock there, because they actually still take cars across over to Liverpool, which is on the other side. Route 15 is over on that side. I gotta take you to Liverpool sometime. That's a really, really pretty little town. But Millersburg Ferry was essential here because of it was one of the few places you could cross the river, and there's also here, there's not that many bridges just because of how wide the river is all along here. It's not a very deep river for over most of the areas, but it's a very wide river. I think it's one of the longer rivers out here on the East Coast as well. But this was mom's land as a kid. These were her adventures, her and her brothers Art and Jim, and we used to come here all the time as kids. This is one of the places Dad used to love to go to. Strasburg Railroad and to Gettysburg National Battlefield. Mom loved to come back here. And while her aunts, Aunt Anna and Aunt Mary, which I think Aunt Anna had passed away by the time we were kids, but Aunt Mary was still around, Mary Hoffman, or Mary Goodling. I think it was another aunt, but she was a Hoffman, and her husband had been paralyzed in a car accident with a drunk driver. And we used to go to their place and visit with them. But a whole slew of aunts and uncles, and her mom, her dad, her brothers. She's now rejoicing in heaven with them, is with Jesus, and just the beauty and serenity of this place, Millersburg, here along the Susquehanna. It's a little bit of heaven. And she also worked with kids with Child Evangelism Fellowship for years, ran good news clubs. Her heart was with children. Her heart was people. She absolutely adored and loved people. She saw the better angels in everybody, and that's I'm glad I got that from her, because it's who she was at her very core. It was everything she was about, was showing kindness, showing love, because that's who she is, who she was. And I know one day we will once again be able to touch Mom, poke her, if it's appropriate in heaven. But I know I'm going to give her the biggest hug and biggest hairy kiss I can. The saying that we had in the last couple years of her life, either her or Ella, my niece, came up with it, but is, I love you with every fiber of my being. And then we used to joke about that every single time we used that saying, Ella was going to charge us a $5 fee. She was making loads of money off of this saying. She had trademarked it and everything. And she always said, don't tell Ella, don't tell Ella. And Ella would even be right there and said, don't tell Ella. She'll charge us for it. And Ella always got a little bit of a laugh out of it. But I was like, well, Mom, we got to have our own thing. So I told her, I love you in a million different ways. And then every single time I said it, each day I'd say, I love you in 1,000,001 different ways. We got to 1,025 different ways. And she died on April 25th. And I love you, Mom, with every fiber of my being. And I love you in 1,026 different ways. And I'll continue to love you with every fiber of my being and every piece of my heart. I always used to joke to her slightly morbidly. I said my toes send their regards. Because I lost 6 of them. And it's like, the little piggies went to market and didn't come back. So I love you, but my toes also, the pieces of me that aren't here anymore. And she used to be like, oh, what have I wrought? But, yeah. Life is one of those things that it's hard sometimes to contemplate. You don't know what to make of it, but life is about memories. It's about these moments that last a lifetime. These things they're my greatest treasures. It's my memories with my mom, all the oddities, the stories, the moments in our lives that we share forever, because those never end. Our bodies at some point will end. They'll deteriorate, they'll go away, but our memories, our legacy, who we were, our soul, the very fiber of who we were, that lasts forever. And Mom's love, her legacy of kindness, compassion, and just decency will last forever. So I want to thank everybody here. We're going to go down to the ferry boats, talk about them a little bit, because they meant so much to Mom. And maybe walk down to that bridge too. She used to love taking us over to the bridge. I think it got washed out at one point when Hurricane Agnes came through. This river got really high, and the Wiccanisco Creek comes down through there and meets the Susquehanna at this bridge, and it totally took it down. And so this is a newer bridge that was put in since Angus, I believe. But we used to always go down to that bridge, talk about her memories, because I think originally it might have even been like a swinging bridge or something like that. But a lot of great memories here, a lot of great memories on the ferry boat, and I'm looking forward to making memories with you guys about the ferry boat and go from there. So let's go down to the ferry boats. We're also going to stop by First United Methodist. That was where they went to church when she was a kid, her mom and her dad. It's originally, I believe, an EUB church, Evangelical United Brethren, but then, when they merged in the 50s, they wound up becoming part of the United Methodist Church. But tell some stories down there and things like that. So we'll see you in a little bit. So once again, we're still here in Millersburg. We're across the street from the First United Methodist Church. I believe this originally would have been EUB. I'm not sure. There's another church I need to check out as well. But Mom, the church they used to go to, her pastor lived right near where they lived. Their home no longer exists. It got torn down maybe about, last time we brought her up here was well over 10 years ago. It's probably 15 years ago. And but she learned how to shoot. She was very unique with her basketball. She shot like the boys, which now you have girls like Caitlin Clark that they all play that way. They all shoot the overhead. Girls didn't shoot overhead like that back then. The basketball game was, they didn't feel back in the 50s that the girls could play the full court, so you'd have three guards, which would be the defenders, and they didn't cross half court, and the three forwards, who were the offensive players, they didn't cross half court either. So they would basically play 3-on-3 basketball, but only half court. And then, you got the ball as the defenders, then you moved it forward, you passed it to the forwards, and the forwards were the ones that scored. But she used to shoot at the pastor's hoop that he had back there with his sons. And so that's how she used to play against those guys. And she shot, her overhead shot with the left hand, but she wasn't allowed to shoot on Sundays. That was the pastor laid down the rules. Any other day was fine, just not Sundays. But I believe this was a church. This is just a really, really pretty church, pretty steeple, beautiful stained glass. Maybe at some point we'll do Millersburg churches here, because there's a number of really pretty churches here in Millersburg. But just another cool story about my mom. The funny thing about them, like back then, and even like true to today to a degree, people come see the girls, but then they'd leave when the boys came up, or they'd leave. They wouldn't come for the girls. Sorry, I got that mixed up. That's how it would be. They'd come for the boys but not go for the girls. Well, my mom played, they'd come for the girls and then leave for the guys. And the guys weren't actually, they were a good team. They were about a little over 500, right in that range in her senior year, but they'd all be shouting for Mary. She was so good. She averaged 28 points a game, and her cousin Jane, who was the other star, she averaged about 26 points a game. But Jane always said, your mom was the really good player, because a lot of the stuff that she got were layups, whereas Mom, it was all shots. She was dangerous. It was actually sort of funny. Even into probably her 60s, she was still good. She shocked people with how good she could shoot. I couldn't beat her till I was probably 15 or 16, because she was that good. She was deadly. My dad called her champ. She was just really an extraordinary athlete. And I remember one of the funny things that used to happen. We had a hoop that we got from Green Stamps, if you guys remember that. Me and my mom would be out there shooting. I couldn't beat her in horse to save my life. She just beat the tarnation out of me. And then my sister wasn't into the sports like that, so she would steal the basketball, shove it underneath her skirt, and like, I'm pregnant. You wouldn't hit a pregnant woman, would you? Well, they're good memories. It's one of those things that you really you enjoy. So this beautiful church here it's on Union Street, and I can't quite read what the other one is, but it's right here in that intersection. But I believe that's the church, because my grandpa, he originally was EUB, which would be Evangelical United Brethren, and then in the 50s they wound up merging with the Methodist Church and became the United Methodist Church. But good memories. So here we are at the ferry boats. These things, we have such great memories with Mom. We have the Falcon, and we'll go down to the other one. This one I've ridden a lot less than the red one here. I believe it's Roaring Bull. I think this is the one when we were down here, right around the time that I started the channel, but I hadn't started posting videos yet. Yeah, the Roaring Bull. This is the one that we rode. I have the anchors here. But yeah, a lot of good memories on these ferries. Just, it's a very unique form of transportation that you just don't see anymore. And Millersburg is one of the few places where you can ride these old ferry boats. But like I said, a lot of great memories with these, with Mom. So here we are, this bridge. This is the one I told you about. Coming from the other side, the ferries are on the other side of the creek here. This is the Wickanisco Creek. You got the rail bridge down there, which we'll get a better view of. But the Wickanisco Creek goes down into Susquehanna. This is the bridge that probably, I think, the original one went down in Angus flood with Hurricane Angus. But you can just see how pretty it is. Just such a beautiful day. And up there is the rail bridge. This side is another park. I think Milo Park or something like that. Has baseball stadium over here, a bunch of other stuff along Susquehanna. And then on this side is Riverfront Park, which takes you down to the ferry. But this was always something, we would always cross this bridge, because this is something that meant a ton to Mom. You can see how pretty it is going up through the Wickanisco Creek there. And the whole bridge sort of moves. Just a little disconcerting when your balance is garbage, but it's cool nonetheless. But this is another memory of Mom. Just something that she always loved to do. And always when we came here, this was something that we always would walk back and forth across this little bridge. But yeah, it's the memories of Mom. Just wanted to video these chubby little squirrels here. One's sitting there staring at me, decided maybe whether he's going to come over or not, whether he's going to get fed. I just love when they sit like that. He just has his arms up against himself. He's like, what should I do? And there you got the other ones going, running off. He's like, this guy looks sketchy. You're posing, aren't you, buddy? Yeah, you're posing. You're looking right at me. Who is this weirdo? Yeah. It's a nice day to be out looking for some nuts. Going from there. Well, anyways, I want to say thank you to everybody for coming along on this adventure with me, remembering Mom, celebrating who she was. And once again, I thank you guys all for your prayers, your thoughts, your support. It means the world. These things are always hard. You do the best that you can, but it's just, it is what it is. You know, loss is part of life, and love is also part of life. You love deeply, it hurts deeply. So thank you as always, everybody, and we'll see you all about town.